All right. So in the last leg of this slide set, we'll look at how to actually implement the recycler view. So on create of the um, main activity, after the standard stuff like on create on super on create and set content view, um, we'll access the recycler view like this, get it from the UI, and then create a new journal entry list adapter. Now we haven't seen this class yet. We'll get to that in a second. Basically, what we are doing here is we set the adapter of the recycler view to this instance of the journal entry list adapter. And we set its layout manager to a linear layout manager with this context. Okay, that's all we are doing here. Now let's talk about the adapter. Um, Adapter, as I said, the idea is to basically connect two incompatible interfaces, like we see with physical adapters for electronic devices and things like that. Here, what are the two incompatible interfaces? The data and the view. So uh, why incompatible? Well, data doesn't know anything about the view, and the view doesn't know anything about this particular data, right? So the adapter has to make sure it plugs in the appropriate data at the view item. So when someone scrolls through the list, they get to see the appropriate items. So that's the high level idea here. Um, what the adapter does is it receives the data and does what is required and make sure it can be displayed on the view, and then it places it in the widgets that are on the view. In our case, the data is a list of journal entries. Each data item is a journal entry, and the view has two text views, if you remember, one for the title of the entry and the other for the duration. So what we'll do in this adapter is extract the journal entry at the current position and put it in the title and duration at related text views. So that's what our adapter will do here. Um, so we create a class journal entry list adapter which extends recycler view dot adapter, which is a generic class. It takes a parameter type which is which is an inner class like this. Its name is entry view holder. Okay, that entry view holder itself will extend a view holder, and we'll come to that in a second. But this is what you'll have inside the adapter. You'll have a layout inflator to deal with the layout and things inside it, um, and you'll have a list of entries, of course, because that is the data. So adapter has both the view and the data in it to deal with. Okay. Um, the constructor takes the context. It needs to know where this layout should be taken and inflated from. And that's what we are doing here in the constructor. Next is the onCreate view holder. So this is like a life cycle of the adapter itself, right? So here you are creating the view holder, which we haven't seen yet. We'll get to that in a second. But see what are its parameters. It takes a view group and it takes a view type, um, um, which is which will both they will use them here when we inflate it, right? So we inflate the journal item layout. We have not seen this yet. We'll get to that in a second. And we inflate it using the parent, and we return a new entry view holder using that particular item view which we have inflated. So um, yeah, and this is another thing you'll do in the adapter. Basically, this is a method called when the view holder is bound to the adapter, and it takes the view holder and a position. So as you can see, if the entries are not null, um, you get the entry at the given position, and you place it um, on the text text view for title and the duration. You place the appropriate data. Okay, so this part is what is putting our data on the view. Now let's see what else needs to be done before this actually gets to work. Okay. So at this stage, all this code is incomplete. It will not work. You'll in fact see lots of red wiggly lines. So what's a view holder? A view holder is a placeholder for just one data item in the recycler view. And the view holder knows about the view item. That is, it knows that it has two text views in this case, and it's responsible for populating them with the data received. Okay. Um, Now the adapter is going to um, add data to each view holder from the layout manager. Um, View holder itself has a layout, which is an XML resource file as usual. So here is the one for um, our view holder. Okay, it's a vertical linear layout with the title text view, which holds this part, the title, and then the one for duration. The title one uh, has one of the attributes which makes the display large. The duration text view has italics. That's why it's looking like this. All of these things can happen like a regular XML layout. So that part is standard. Now let's see how it is connected. Okay, so now we are creating that inner class entry view holder inside the adapter. It extends recycler view dot view holder. You know that is, this entry view holder is the one that went here as a parameter of the adapter. Okay. Um, Inside it, um, we have the fields that we get from the view. Okay, so the constructor of the view holder gets a view, which is item view, and it should call the superclass constructor first, and then you can call find view by ID on the item view by giving the appropriate IDs from the layout. So view holder is responsible for extracting the UI element into some program variables like these. And then let me go back a little. Um, yeah, on the onbind in the onbind view holder, we saw what data to be put in it, because that's where we are getting the position um, from one of the lifecycle methods, and we don't really have to worry about it. We just have to plug in the code at the appropriate places, and this is where you'll put the data on those text views, or in general on the widgets in in the view holder. Okay, so yeah, I think this is where we were. All right. Um, okay. Finally, we'll implement a couple other um, um, inherited methods in the adapter. Well, one inherited method, another one we need um, the observer, as we'll see in a second. So get atom count, it expects the number of um, entries, and it checks if the entries is not null. If it is, well, return 0, otherwise return entries.size. Yeah? So that's fairly straightforward. Um, Set entries um, is where you'll actually assign value to the m entries field by setting it to this parameter value, or whatever it is. And the important thing here is the notify dataset changed. So this is a method that we will call, and that will indicate any changes to the dataset, as the name suggests, and that will be picked up by the observer in the main activity. Okay. All right. So that was implementing the adapter, and we have seen how to plug it in here in the main activity already. Um, so now we have the recycler view, and adapter is set for that, um, and it will take care of loading the activities appropriately. Now what we need to do is we need to deal with we need to connect the activity with the view model, because view model is what is driving the data. So let's do that. Okay, so view model is our instance variable. We create it as usual, view model provider this, and then get from the class. And we call the get all entries on the journal view model. But we don't take the return value and put it in something. Um, Instead, we call the observer on it. So dot observe takes the context and then takes a block of code. Again, this is functional programming. Um, it can be simplified further, but this is readable enough at this point. What we are doing here is um, what we are saying here is this is a method which takes a list of entries as an argument and calls adapter.set entries. So what this means is whenever there is a change in the return value of get all entries, which is a list of journal entries, we want to call adapter.set entries. Now let's go back and see what adapter.set entries does. Sorry. Yeah. So adapter.set entries sets that value to the entries field, and then it calls notify dataset changed. Okay, and that is going to trigger um, the changes, and the UI will um, update the current list with the appropriate changes. Okay, so that's the code. There is a lot, so take some time, go through the code, and try to type it out and run it yourself. And when you're done with that, you should see the app as I kind of demonstrated through the screenshots earlier. Let me quickly get there if I can. Yeah, so this is how it will start. You click the plus button, and you'll see a place where you can enter the entry, journal entry, and click save, and you get back here with that entry added. Um, Add a bunch of them and they'll start looking like this. Okay, so yeah, take some time, spend some time on this to get a hang of different concepts that we discussed today. Next, we'll start talking about fragments, which makes the UI much better to interact with and our apps more flexible. Thank you.